So, we have been talking, I've been hearing some speakers here talking about GenAI, artificial intelligence, ML and all. But in today's scenario, we need to understand that it's the truth and it's the reality of today. Many of the enterprises have already adopted GenAI in some way or the other, and many of them are going to adopt it in future as well. So this reality is not going to go anywhere. We have to realize it, and we have to embrace ourselves to adopt GenAI or maybe any sort of AI model in our enterprises. Now, my session would typically be on how to embrace and how to adopt GenAI securely in any enterprise. What are the key things? What are the tools which are typically required, or which is the strategy you should take to adopt GenAI within an organization securely? So that is our agenda. And before I start, I'll just quickly, do you have a voice in this? So I am from Varonis. Varonis is one of the leaders in data security. We have been there in the market since 20 years. But our strategy is not about deploy just only the product, but we believe in getting outcomes for the enterprises, specifically in GenAI. So we have worked with many enterprises recently to make sure that their GenAI adoption becomes secure. So I'll be talking about predominantly on that. So we've seen that organizations have deployed multiple solutions in the past 20-25 years. We all have got great firewalls, great SASE products, great EDRs, but still breaches are not stopping. In recent past, we have understood that in last 2 years, 80% of the breaches or 80% of the attacks which have happened on enterprises are data breaches. Even after investing a lot of money, a lot of effort, time, tools, technologies, data breaches are not going to stop. The reason behind that is we have been focusing on all the perimeter, all the security areas, but we have not focused on the most important area, that is data. Data is the most important thing on, behind which every attacker or hacker is going. So either, we understand that any attack starts from identity compromise and ends with data exfiltration. It's just the matter that how that identity is getting compromised is where we have all focused, but we have not focused that how our data is governed, how exactly the data is getting protected. So that is where Varonis focuses on. We focus on data. That is the most important crown jewel, and we'll keep our entire strategy around that, how to monitor, how to ensure that data, wherever it is secured and properly guarded with appropriate controls. Now, before I move ahead, I want to highlight a very important concept that is called blast radius. We generally ignore this area because we have not even put enough consideration. The blast radius is all about an access an individual holds within an organization. So today we tend to deploy a lot of DLPs, labeling, classification, all that, but we are not sure that how much data is exposed within our organizations and even our collaborators, business partners, clients, customers. So the blast radius actually translates into the attack surface within the organization, and this blast radius is increasing significantly in last few years. Reason being, there's an annual data growth which is happening within a normal enterprise by around 20-25%. That means the data which you're dealing with today will be almost doubled in next 3 to 4 years. So try to understand the humongous amount of area where we have to focus on. Then the unique permissions to manage. Earlier, admins used to manage that what access needs to be given to an individual on typical amount of data or particular amount of data. But now people use collaboration tools. They give access to their own data on themselves. So it's like a platform which you introduce for collaboration, but access becomes, it becomes really, really easy for people to give to many other people within the organization itself. So there are 40 million unique permissions to manage on an average. And what we have seen, because this data is coming from our surveys, which we have done for around more than 800 customers with more than 10,000 users on an average, it talks about that there is an average 17 million files open to every employee who joins on day one. So do you think in this world, will it be necessary for an employee who joins on day one have access to 17 million files which may contain sensitive information? And that is the reason the blast radius is very scary, and it is increasing significantly, because we are not guarding those controls which are required around data. And then introduction of GenAI. So we have been talking GenAI. Introduction of copilots, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, Salesforce Einstein. These guys are doing some phenomenal work in order to make productive, in order to make knowledge workers more productive. But at the same time, from a security standpoint, it is very difficult to guard that what data is actually getting into these tools and being fed to the users. So it's very important to understand, and why, getting access to data is now much more easier than before. Earlier, we used to know that what file we have access to, but now these guys already know where you have access to, and they can easily fetch information on your behalf. I'll just show you one example. So it's a normal Copilot prompt, where user will simply go ahead and type a normal statement on employees. User doesn't know where that information will pop up, but the moment he puts prompt on Copilot, Copilot will provide all the information in plain text to the user. It becomes really easy. It becomes really, really easy for users to get the information, and then user becomes even more curious to get that information and get more information on that, and it becomes really easy for the user to get that information, because the reason is, and before I move the reason, the other way to get to this information easily is enterprise search. So this is an example from Microsoft. If you're using M365 in your environments, you can always check on your machines. You can get to the Bing Edge browser, log into bing.com, log in with your own profile, corporate profile, and then go this way. Can you please, yeah. So you can see that it's bing.com, it's just opening. Sorry. Can you please play the video from there if it's possible? Yeah. So you can see the guy is opening bing.com on Edge browser, and you have a work tab there, right? You have a work tab there. It actually introduces an enterprise search mechanism for that user within the organization. The moment you click on work, and then you tend to search anything. You search about budgets, you search about finances, you search about profit and losses, you search about intellectual property, you search about PII, you search about your top executives. Anything which is exposed to you, anything on which you have permissions to, will automatically be published in the files. And the guy can easily open that file on his laptop without even knowing where that file lies. So it will show the results from your own laptop, or from your own OneDrive SharePoint, and it will show results from the people who have shared that data with you without even you knowing about it. Now, how does it work exactly? So Copilot actually uses a prompt which user feeds in, maybe on any application in M365. Then Microsoft gathers all the information based on the prompt within the business environment, and then this entire thing works around permission. If a user has access or permissions assigned to data on which he is not authorized to, then also the Copilot will go ahead and fetch that information and give it to him, because the permissions are assigned, permissions are there for that data. Then modified prompt, definitely Microsoft will process that prompt, process this response, and then send to an LLM, and then post-processing all the checks, the response is published back to the user. So the key thing is understanding whether you have right amount of permissions assigned within M365, or be it any sort of SaaS, on-prem, cloud applications in your environment. It's a Microsoft Cloud Permission Report which talks about that majority of the identities are over-permissioned, and it's a report published by Microsoft themselves. They also talk about that half of the permissions which are assigned on critical data are high risk, and 99% of the permissions are unused. And this is the area where we have to focus on. majority of the data which have access to people, that data is actually not used. Those permissions are not used. So why would we keep that permissions? Why would we keep those data open to all those employees when they don't need it? Now, this is how an AI blast radius will look like. So it will talk about how many folders an AI engine can access within the organization, how many links, how many stale files, how many total files are in purview of that particular AI model. So be it Copilot, be it Gemini, be it Einstein, any AI model can access this much amount of data. So we actually tend to provide this kind of blast radius scenario for any organization to understand what is their risk, where they are sitting on, whether they are ready to adopt GenAI or not. Now I'll quickly cover what Varonis is and how Varonis will address this particular problem. So we are a 20-year-old company already listed in NASDAQ since 2014. We understand this domain pretty well. We have skill set, we have people, resources to help organizations to attain, to embrace GenAI within their environment. Plus we have supported more than 8,000 customers globally. Many of them are Fortune 500, and more than 93% customer retention rate we are having within us. So we continue to deliver value year on year back to our customers while scanning their environments and giving real-time value to them. And we have recently launched industry's first managed data detection and response capability, where our team helps organizations to detect threats happening on data in real time. None of the vendors in the security market is focused on data detection and response. So we are the first one who actually understands what is the impact on data, what all files, folders are in risk within the organization, and in real time we help the organizations to come out of that. These are the primary offerings within Varonis. Key offering which we are providing from our platform, the single digital platform, we are providing DSPM, and all the other offerings come under it. So there are different use cases which we solve regarding AI security, regarding cloud DLP, data discovery, classification, Active Directory security, email security. There are a lot of things which we do from the single platform, but majority of the part or the major crux is coming from the DSPM standpoint. DSPM stands for Data Security Posture Management, where we help organizations to maintain the hygiene and policies around data security within their environment. This is our coverage. So we integrate with different platforms just to give you that visibility that what data is at risk. So from on-prem to SaaS to IaaS, all major platforms, all popular platforms are covered. So we can integrate with them, give you a consolidated view around your data and identities, that how they are behaving with critical information, so that you have a single pane of glass to look at that what is my data, where it is, who has access to it, and how it is being used. It's very important to have that today, and unfortunately none of the security providers or data security providers are giving this kind of visibility. These are our partial clientele globally. You can see financial services, public sector, retail, consumer, transportation. A lot of customers in different domains, very big names like Coca-Cola, Toyota, L'Oreal. Then in NASA, US Army, transportation, logistics, we have Transformative Systems. Many big names are using Varonis as a global data security platform for them. And this is our Indian partial clientele. Customers like Concentrix, TMF, SK Finance have recently adopted us. They have already deployed the solution and start getting the value coming out of the platform. Now, how DSPM helps in securely adopting GenAI. That is the main important point. So this is the Gartner terminology, what Gartner talks about DSPM. So Gartner says that an organization should have a DSPM which should provide a proper visibility that where the sensitive data is, who has access to that data, how it has been used, and what the security posture of that stored data is. If you know what is your sensitive data, who has access to it, and how it is being used, you're actually solving half of your problem, because you know what you are trying to protect and what you are dealing with. Because the problem today is, if you ask the question yourself, do you know where your data is? Do you know how many people are actually accessing it? If I ask you a question, how many PII files were created in the last 15 days in your environment? Will you be able to tell across environments? That means be it IaaS, SaaS, on-prem combined together. It's not easy to get that information, trust me. And then if I talk about that, how many overexposures are there on the data, it is even more difficult. So creating that context around critical information is very important, and that's what Gartner mentioned. Now, DSPMs, there are a lot of DSPMs out there, and majority of the DSPMs actually stops here. They only do discovery and classification. They actually go ahead and tell you, you go to them with one problem, they'll end up with 1,000 more problems. Because when you see the data, then you are more accountable to solve the gaps and the risk around it. It's very important. So visibility is not just a thing of DSPM. DSPM's responsibility is to give outcomes which can derive business objectives, where you can actually go ahead and protect data. So analyzing permissions, remediating permissions, and understanding proper attack flows and paths for your data is very essential, which is the most important and hardest part in DSPM, which actually should be part of your DSPM strategy. It should not be only discovery and classification and identity misconfigurations, which majority the DSPM does. Now, the key elements based off Gartner, what Gartner says, what data is important, that is sensitivity of data, who has access to it, and how it is being used. These are the three important pillars on which Varonis DSPM actually revolves around. So Gartner has recently launched it, but we have been doing it for 20 years, so we know this field much more better than any other DSPM player out there. Now, the key capabilities, I'll just quickly cover the 5 important pillars which an organization should look at while adopting DSPM to protect data and to embrace GenAI securely. The first is discovery and classify. The solution should have enough information and enough capability to discover information with predefined templates, custom capabilities, AI-backed classification techniques. And system should be able to tell you that where your important data is residing. So whether it is SharePoint, OneDrive, Windows, Google, Salesforce, Jira, Okta, GitHub, etc., you should have that complete visibility that where your sensitive data is, how much of that data is exposed. Then it should also segregate what type of data it is. So whether it is an Indian PII, US PII, credentials, merger acquisitions, and many other things which are there in the organization, it should be able to properly categorize that information for you. So we have got enough predefined policies within the environment, so you need not to do the heavy lifting while deploying the product. We already give tested world-class policies to start with, and then you can provide your own inputs to discover the information within the environment. Then coverage is very important. Solutions should be able to cover all the major applications, as I mentioned earlier. It should not be only on-prem, only cloud, only SaaS, only IaaS. It should have a holistic approach to give you complete information. Then the third piece is, once you have the visibility, the question customer asks today or enterprises asks today, how do I remediate these problems? Because that is the hard part. So remediation is very important. So Varonis goes one step ahead from any other data security player in the market right now. We go ahead and remediate excessive permissions. We go ahead, so you can see some examples here. So we get these kind of reports where we tend to see that entire DocuSign folder is open to internet and public links. We can see anonymous logon, and it's actual one sample coming from one risk assessment which we do for the customers. So these type of problems, when you see on large amount of files and folders, how would you go and manually remediate? It's not possible for you to do that. Similarly, corporate HR information is exposed to everyone. You can see an everyone org-wide exposure mapped here with complete HR site is exposed. You can have a lot of HR related information, employee data, salary, appraisals, all that is exposed to everyone, and people can use GenAI tools to actually get to that information pretty easily. So what we do is, we first of all identify how many records are org-wide exposed. So we map exposure in public, external, guest, org-wide, and internal format. We tend to focus on org-wide or guest or external, whatever exposure is critical to you. And then we apply specific remediations to that area, maybe a specific file type, data type, location, user, account, business unit. We can apply that, and the moment we do that, automatically that remediation will take place and your risk will automatically reduce from those many files to this much which is authorized in your environment. So these remediations happen automatically at the backend once you approve them, and you just sit back and relax. All historical data, all future data will automatically be covered from the remediations which are happening. And these are all some of our automated remediations available in the system. You can create your own automations to embrace, and you can see some AI-related automatic remediations available to reduce GenAI blast radius and to make sure that GenAI is properly adopted and securely adopted. And these are some automated posture management. So apart from data, we also fix posture for applications which are integrated. So we map various frameworks like NIST, CIS, ISOs, and provide you visibility that how much non-compliance is there in your environment for the data stores which are integrated with Varonis. So you get from misconfigurations to data security in a single platform, whatever you have integrated with Varonis on daily basis. So definitely, when you have less exposure, then compromised users can do less damage. That is the idea, to reduce the attack surface within the environment. Then data access. So we do beautifully, we actually monitor activities on data also to map that how data is being used. So we capture almost all possible file touch which are happening on your data. So file deletion, updation, download, share, anything which is happening on your data will also be tracked. This will be provided as log within your environment, but also we'll baseline the user activities on data. This baseline helps us that if there is a suspicious activity happening on data, a service backup account touching your file server, rather than backupping, it is encrypting or renaming the files on that file server, will automatically be triggering alerts in our platform, because it's not normal for a backup account or for any other service account to do that. So we map all those, and we actually categorize this in different forensics format. You can investigate all those file activities within the environment. And then we enrich those logs with our intelligence, which is coming from AD, which is coming from different file stores. We understand that whether it is an executive account, whether the file is sensitive, what is the device name, what is the geolocation, to make sure that that particular event becomes contextual. It should not be a normal log for you. And this is one example which we have got again in one of the DRAs which we did for the customer, where you can understand that a backup service activity deviated from its normal behavior. It actually triggered an alarm within 30 minutes, and backup service was deactivated and fully terminated for that particular time. And we told the customer to investigate, and it was a random ransomware attack which happened on that particular file server, where service backup account was compromised to encrypt the files on that particular server. And we were fortunate that we got this during our risk assessments. So this is just one view where we can actually tell you that GDPR data was actually the impact within that particular ransomware attack. So we were the only solution in that environment which could tell them that there is a ransomware attack happening on your GDPR data, you should look at it. So that is the area where we cover threats plus data in a single view. And these were all the events which were captured. You can see file renamed, activities, backup service account, all that telemetry is available for investigation. Lastly, GenAI governance. I'll take a couple of minutes more just to make sure that you end up understanding that how exactly we are leveraging and helping customers to adopt GenAI. So we have a dedicated GenAI dashboard which looks like this. It talks about that how many prompts were there today by the users, how many file references were there by users today, how many collaboration links are open to GenAI tools, how much overexposed data is there for GenAI tools, so that you understand that what is the overall blast radius of your GenAI. If you're using Copilot, Gemini in your environment, how much data they can actually leverage and access within your environment without even putting any sort of governance. So when you see this blast radius, then these automations will come into picture, the Copilot specific automations, which help reducing the risk of accessing data by Copilot for an unauthorized prompt or unknown prompt. So these remediations can work automatically on the backend. And we also are into monitoring exact conversations which are happening between the user and the GenAI tool. So you can see, we can map the entire conversation for forensics, where you can understand that what user actually did on GenAI tool to retrieve sensitive information. Was it accidental? Was it deliberate? So all that can be easily recorded within the system. And you can see, we can check the files which were referenced by Copilot, what all data was that, whether it was sensitive data or intellectual property, whatever it is. So all that is recorded within the system from our solution. So thank you so much. I exceeded a little time, but yeah, it was important for you to give that understanding that data security is holistical. You should not look at a point solution. You should have single platforms or automated platforms to govern data access and data security within your environment. Thank you so much. We are here. If you're interested, we can talk and decide if you want something from within your organization. Thank you so much.